We are a death-denying culture, and we don't like to talk about it. We tend to make it a spectacle in TV and in movies. So we don't actually deal with the nitty-gritty parts of death and dying and grief. I think that we got to this point now because essentially people became uncomfortable with death, and really the professionalization of the funeral industry. People were dying in hospitals, they were no longer dying in the home, so people were encountering the dying process. I am Dr. Candi Cann from Baylor University, and I'm an associate professor. My research specialty is death, dying, and grief. I do all things having to do with the dying process and the relationship that grief, death, and dying have to do with religion. Many cultures around the world that celebrate the process of dying and death as just a natural part of the cycle of life. And I think that if we can learn to embrace death as one part of life, and the reality is we all die, then we will be better prepared when it comes to dying ourselves, but also to help others and our family and our loved ones to prepare for our own death in the future.
Dr. Candi Cann is one of the most prominent contemporary scholars of death in our age. Each time I was completely blown away by her dynamic speaking style and the depth of her research.
Most places in the United States, for example, don't actually have a bereavement policy in place. So this creates a culture in which we're often not discussing death, dying, and grief, and we're not comfortable sharing or talking about it with our colleagues, with our friends, with our loved ones. So I think embodied practices in which we collectively mourn together are really important, but we can also do these things on our own. We can do individual practices. We can light a candle every morning. We can light a candle every night. I think one of the most beautiful things from Dia de los Muertos is the setting up of an altar. You can simply place a picture of your loved one somewhere in the house and make offerings, light a candle, light some incense, play their favorite music, give them a beer on Friday night. I mean, these are embodied practices that I think really help us because we hold grief in our bodies. And I think by actually practicing kinetic grief, it helps us to move through to a better place. Not necessarily get better, but to move through to a better place. So I think the reality is the more we think about it, actually the less we become afraid of it. And the more that we take on the tasks such as writing a will, such as talking with our loved ones about having a living will, what should happen if we become incapacitated, what are the wishes we have, how do we want to be cared for, how do we envision our dying. The more we do that, the more we actually have control over our dying and death and can deal with the kind of feelings that come with these losses. I hope people can talk about death. I hope that they can become comfortable with the subject of death because honestly, for me, the most important thing about death is that it helps us to live better. And if we really recognize that every single person that's born on this earth will one day die, then I think we'll live better lives. We'll live more intentional lives. And we'll be kinder and just. And hopefully we'll do the things we've always wanted to do. We never know when we're going to die. And so for me, allowing death to enter the conversation really allows us to live better.